Before we get started tonight, we've got a special presentation. We actually have someone retiring from the police department, and we'd like to ask K-9 Hans to come forward with Officer Major Sack, and his family can join us too if you like up here. It's up to you. I remember when Hans came to work for us about a few years ago, so it was hello. All right, we're putting together a proclamation for K-9 Hans, so I'd like to read that to you. It says, whereas K-9 Hans began his career with Officer David Major Sack in November 2016 and was a dual-purpose K-9 with the ability to track, detect illicit drugs, find articles, conduct building searches, conduct building and bite work. Whereas K-9 Hans has conducted countless free air vehicle sniffs, resulting in the seizure of several kilos of drugs, money, and vehicles, and has assisted Beavercreek Police Department and the surrounding agencies in more than 600 incidents during his 6 years working on road patrol. Whereas K-9 Hans had 9 suspect apprehensions, with a notable track from a robbery at a McDonald's in Xenia, tracking a suspect who had fled on foot for several blocks, and K-9 Hans led the officers straight to the front door of the suspect's residence. And whereas K-9 Hans has 2 national certifications and thousands of hours of training, and whereas Officer Major Sack was reassigned to the School Resource Officer in December 2022, where K-9 Hans continued to assist the school with school functions, and he spent the last year assisting special needs students at Coy and Ankeny Middle School. Now therefore, I, Don Adams, Mayor of the City of Beavercreek, and the entire City Council and a grateful community do hereby honor and commend K-9 Hans for his exceptional service and lifelong dedication to public safety and keeping the City of Beavercreek and Beavercreek Township a safe and wonderful community in which to live, work, and play. Congratulations. Whoa. He wants to go to work. Do you want to say anything, David?
Yeah, I can say something real quick. First off, I just want to thank the chief and captains for giving me this opportunity to have a partner like that. If you've never had a true partner, a K-9 is the one to have. He's been an amazing partner. I can trust him. I talk to him, and he could go another 10 years, I think, but it's time for him to retire and enjoy the rest of his life with the family. So I just want to say thank you.
As you can tell, there's a strong bond here. So, and it's thank you very much for your service. That was good. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Curran.
Here.
Councilmember Dewar.
Here.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Literal.
Here.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bales.
Here.
Mayor Adams.
Here. Now, if you would all stand, and Dylan, if you would come up front. Dylan's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you don't remain standing, I have been giving some thought to North Carolina over the last several days, and it reminds me a lot of what we went through here back in 2019, only not theirs is a much higher level than we ever experienced here. There's over 100 people who died down there, and there's still people who have lost everything, and I think it'll be a long time recovering from that. I'd just like for everybody just to remember them, maybe give us a moment of silence for those that have passed away and those that are struggling and will be struggling for probably several years. Thank you very much. And thank you, Dylan, for coming forward. We have an agenda in front of us. Any additions, corrections?
Approve the agenda, Your Honor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now we have two sets of minutes. October 14th, regular council meeting. Any additions, changes, or corrections?
Move to approve the October 14th meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the October 14th meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
And we also have the October 21st council work session minutes. Any additions or corrections there?
Move to approve the October 21st work session minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the work session for October 21st. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing. I'm sorry. You did have that. I just didn't see it. Sorry. Public hearing.
Case number PUD 23-2, SSP number 1. An application filed by Ober Land Developers, LTD, in care of Bridalwood Farms, LLC, 3445 Newmark Drive, Miamisburg, Ohio, 45342. The applicant requests approval of a specific site plan to allow development of 117 single-family residential homes on 50.01 acres of land. The property is located on the west side of North Alpha Bellbrook Road, approximately 1,200 feet north of the intersection of North Alpha Bellbrook Road and Indian Ripple Road, further described as Book 6, page 19, Parcel 1 on the Greene County Property Tax Atlas.
Thank you very much. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is George Ober, and with the Ober Land Developers. We know where this property is located. I'm not going to be redundant, but I did want to mention that our company has been in the land development business for 4 generations, celebrating our 75th anniversary this year. So and we've developed multiple projects. Greene County, specifically in Beavercreek and Beavercreek Township, and I'm a Beavercreek resident. So, Ober Companies purchased this horse farm in March of 2023. On October 9th of 23, the property was rezoned from A1 agricultural to RPUD. Then on March 7th, the specific site plan application was submitted for approvals. We've been delayed quite a while because of some traffic studies that had to be in conjunction with the school district because they own a site just south of here. So finally those approvals and comments came in, and on the 29th of August, traffic study comments were received and pretty minor in nature, and the resubmittal was made on September the 17th. There were several conditions when the Planning Commission suggested or recommended approval. And I won't go into all of those. The only thing I would ask you to do is that we learned from a project over in Centerville that we needed to reach a broad audience. This community is targeted primarily for empty nesters. So these are seniors that are going to want to age in place, probably own homes in the general area within a 5-mile radius. And most of these residents want to sell their existing home. A lot of times it's a larger home and downsize into something that's maybe more senior friendly. Single-level homes, single-level floor plans, all of which are 2-car garages. But one of the things we found at Cornerstone was that pre-COVID, we designed a product that would come in at actually in the $299,000 range, the high twos. Costs have increased over 50% since 2020. So the product that was going to be $299,900 became $400,000. So the project set pretty dead for, and it was, that was a single level, or a single product, single floor plan product. Became obvious that we needed to broaden the price point, so we introduced 2 new floor plans, one of which was in the 1,260 square foot range, and the other one, frankly, a little higher than that, pretty much in between the 1,700 square foot and the 1,200 square foot. The result of that was sales increased rapidly, but we didn't sell any of the smaller one. But it was the ability to offer that $299 price point that brought people in, and most of these folks are cash buyers. They put a lot of options in. For an example, I'm not sure we've sold one yet without a Florida room or a covered patio, and sometimes both. So we've been doing this since the 1970s in this empty nester product point, so we do know it pretty well. And so we're fine with all of the 20 conditions except for that one. We have worked, staff has been extremely available to us and cooperative to work with on the details of this plan. We appreciate their assistance, appreciate the Planning Commission recommendation, and we ask for your approval this evening. Now, I can answer any questions about the square footage of the product. The other communities that we offer this in, there's 2 of them, one in Centerville at Cornerstone, the other one being in Reeder's Grove at Washington Trace in Washington Township. Questions?
Is that your presentation?
I'm sorry.
That's your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, we'll have staff, and then we'll have questions.
Okay.
We'll, after the staff.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. The case you have before you, almost close, PUD 23-2, it's the first specific site plan, or specific site plan number 1. Again, the applicant's requesting approval of 117 homes on about 50 acres of land. In terms of the overall PUD process, of course, it's a 2-phase process. We went through, as Mr. Ober stated, we went through the first phase back last year. Planning Commission, then we started the second phase. Planning Commission reviewed the applicant's request at their last Planning Commission meeting, and made a recommendation, which you have in your packet this evening. And now we're at the City Council public hearing portion of the Phase 2. Should this be approved, then the final step would be for the applicant to go through subdivision, which is just a Planning Commission approval to actually lay out or get the official document that creates the lots approved by Planning Commission before it got recorded. The property is located in southeast Beavercreek. It's right along the eastern border. To the north is a single-family residential neighborhood. To the south is A1, a large lot, single-family residential. And to the east is outside of the city in the township, but is currently vacant land. And the applicant has a separate application in the township to develop that into a single-family neighborhood as well. Again, it's got A1 agriculture to the south, RPUD, or R1A to the north, and then this one is the RPUD that you see in the center. Seen here is the proposed site plan, and with this site plan, it includes 4 access points, the main being right off of Indian Ripple Road, I'm sorry, Alpha Bellbrook Road, sorry about that, and This is, Alpha Bellbrook's a county road, and that's why the delay. The county engineer and the township were the ones that were reviewing the traffic study, and we heard back from them in mid-August. And essentially what they're looking for is a right turn in and a left turn in, decel lanes to get into the neighborhood. So that'll be required prior to the neighborhood, or at least be bonded before the construction starts, but that'll be part of the township and the county's project to improve Alpha Bellbrook Road. The project also has 2 access points to the existing neighborhood. You can see them along the northern property line, and those have been stub streets since the 70s, and it was always the intent of those stub streets and is for further connection, which is what they're proposing with this. And along the same lines, you can see in the southwest corner, there's another stub street that would be constructed with this project. And then should the property develop to the south in the future, then that would give an opportunity to access that stub street and potentially a secondary access point right out onto Indian Ripple Road, depending on the scope and the size of the development to the south. This is just to give you a close-up view of a typical roadway within the subdivision. You've got 50-foot of right-of-way with 27 feet of street pavement, and then you've got tree lawns and then sidewalks, and then behind the sidewalks is where the property line starts. So the right-of-way is just on the back side of that sidewalk. Now, this is just to give you an idea of how it fits in with the existing neighborhood and to the farm to the south. You can see that along the northern property line, there is a green shaded area, and what that is, and this was established at the rezoning, was a green space easement. And per the definition in the zoning code, green space easement requires all trees that are 4 inches caliper or larger in diameter to remain as such, or remain in place and not to be removed either by the developer or the future homeowner, unless the tree is dead or dying. If it's a nuisance, it's a hazard, and they can get an arborist to say that it's a hazard. And one of the caveats to the conditions in the motion is that be enforced by the homeowners association and not the city. We've had a few of these in the past. We had one down in the meadows of Beavercreek down on Long Meadow, and actually it was established in the late 90s, and then in 2017 there was a request by the homeowners to remove that. They were having trouble. Trees were starting to get to the point where they were dying, and they had to have somebody come out, and staff had to go out, and it just became such a problem for them to be able to cut down dead trees that they requested it be removed, and in 2017 City Council passed an ordinance to remove it from the zoning in the PUD. One of the things that Planning Commission added at their meeting last month was along the western property line, and then also along the southern property line, that it's not called a green space easement, but the verbiage in there states that any, let me get to it, sorry, I'm kind of jumping around here, but there we go. That any trees that are 3 inches and larger should be remained untouched as part of the grading plan, as part of the grading while they're grading the site, so long as leaving those trees doesn't impede the ability to set up the stormwater detention plan as proposed. So that there's some areas, and on the southern property line, you can see where I highlighted in yellow, they actually need to do grading along that southern property line, and that's to prevent water from flowing off this site to the neighborhood, to the southern, the properties to the south. So those areas we won't be able to save any of the trees, but the areas that aren't highlighted, they're not touching that with grading. So those would be the areas where any tree that's 3 inches and above be saved at the time of grading. It's not a green space easement, so it doesn't have to be in perpetuity, but really there's only one lot that it's not an open space, a community, or 2 lots where it's not a community open space, so controlled by the HOA. So that was a condition that was added at the Planning Commission. Sorry about jumping around here. In terms of the density, at the zoning, it was established at 2.5, maximum 2.5 dwelling units per acre density, and what they're proposing with this plan is 2.34 dwelling units an acre, so they do meet the overall density requirements in the PUD. All the lots meet the minimum lot width requirements of 60 feet that was established at the PUD rezoning. They're proposing to do this in 5 sections, starting at at Alpha Bellbrook Road and then moving towards the west as they move, as the lots sell. And so this is typical with the neighborhood this size. Sometimes I've seen them done where they're all in one section, but it's not surprised that it's split up into multiple sections as they show here. In your packet in Exhibit C, there's several different architectural elevations shown as proposed architecture. And as typical with any residential project, you see projects evolve and additional elevations and architecture be requested. So the condition states that it needs to be architecturally similar and compatible with what they've shown. And if it's not, or if there's a disagreement between the applicant and staff, then we can just take it back to Planning Commission and have them decide if it's compatible with what was approved or not approved. The applicant did talk about minimum footprint sizes, and with this proposal in the motion, it shows a 1,600 square foot minimum for a 1-story, and that doesn't include a garage, and then a 2,550 square foot if it's 2-story. We got that based on, we looked at the sizes of houses within a mile, or within a quarter mile, half mile, and 2 miles. And really a mile is the one that makes the most sense. That's the area highlighted in the lighter blue on this map. Just to make sure that it's any future house or proposed house is in character with size with the neighborhoods surrounding it or within a mile of it. And we looked at that, and the average within a mile is about 1,600 square feet when you don't include the garage. I know that the applicant's requesting a little bit smaller so that they can offer a wider range of products. And I'll leave that to the City Council on their decision on whether or not to allow additional products on that. Just a few conditions within the motion. One is that all 4 sides need to be constructed with the brick, stone, hardy plank. The same house can't be located either directly across the street or on the side next door to each other, so you have some variety within the neighborhood. Each lot will have to have its own photoelectric cell light, so a street light out on its own property line. The ponds that you see on the site plan are wet ponds, so that those need to be aerated, and fountains need to be kept in them so that the water stays, churning and active, so it doesn't become stagnant and full of mosquitoes and moss and things. Another condition was that construction traffic can't use the existing neighborhoods in an effort to not disrupt the lives of the people that live in the neighborhoods now. Any construction traffic would have to come off of Alpha Bellbrook Road rather than through the Terra to the north. And again, the green space easement is shown on the northern property line, and then the 25-foot area of 3-inch larger tree preservation is on the west and the southern property line. I always kind of go over this a little bit on each presentation about the city's role in development. We don't have the ability to stop development. The zoning is really in place to help guide development in an orderly fashion. The only way to stop development would be to purchase the land and declare it not developable, and that's about the city's ability or limit to how we can prevent development from occurring. We also don't consider school impacts as rezonings or site plans. They're a completely separate political board. And traffic impacts, really, in order to stop a project because of traffic, we need to do our own traffic study and it would need to show that no matter what someone did, you couldn't make it safe to use that development. So traffic is a really hard one to stop a project with. There are 20 conditions, not 30, but there are 20 conditions in the motion for your consideration. Planning Commission and staff both recommend approval of the applicant's requests, and I will be happy to answer questions following the public hearing. Thank you.
30.
There are 30.
30, sorry, 20 was another, sorry.
Yeah.
There are 30
Yeah.
conditions.
Right, there are 30. Thank you very much. Now it's time for public input. Anyone who would like to come forward, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to make your presentation, and you can have up to 6 minutes donated to you from the audience.
Hello, my name is Denise Hurley. I live at 3021 Southfield Drive. I still have many concerns about the proposed Bridlewood subdivision. First, the 25-foot green space easement was originally labeled conservation land easement by Ober, but because Beavercreek did not have a definition for this, City Council suggested it be governed by the HOA. It is now called a green space easement. That definition states no sidewalks, no structures, only landscaping, grass, and trees can be in this space. The space is 25 feet wide, with 16 feet being old, worn-out dirt horse path. That leaves just 9 feet of honeysuckle bushes, small trees less than 4 inches in the caliper test, and very few, if any, larger trees. This does not make a true 25-foot buffer. At best, we will have a 9-foot buffer of very little vegetation in an old horse path. Second, Beaver Creek does have one conservation easement, and it was in the meadows of Beaver Creek. I just learned that it was removed off of County Line Road. If such a definition did not exist, how do they get it passed for their development? 3, the green space easement will be located on the future homeowner's lot. How will that future homeowner be restricted to leaving the 25-foot green space easement untouched? What will be the consequences if the future owner uses the green space for personal structures when the resolution states that no structures will be built in that space? And what will stop the future homeowner from depositing their grass clippings and leaves in this area? Again, the current green space is not yet HOA-owned, and the screening buffering will be very sparse. Once the HOA is turned over to the owners, can they change that green space? And can you grandfather it now so that they can't have that option? 4, due to the confusion over the original conservation land easement and now labeled green space easement, I would like to see the 25-foot open space buffer be required between the developments with nothing disturbed in that area. Hence, the current natural state of the 25 feet in question, basically a no-cut area. I would be open to an earthen berm mound with landscaping on top, such as mature pine trees. 5th, the bottom line is that currently with the site plan, the Terra neighbors are not given a screening buffer zone because the future owner can take it all out. 6th, the green space definition states a fence will be placed in this area. Who decides the type of fence? And once again, said fence will be able to go right up to the back of my property line. Once there, how will you know if those owners are removing the 9 feet in question of greenery and trees and/or dumping grass clippings, leaves, etc. into that space? 7th, the Walnut Ridge subdivision will be built by Ober just opposite Bridal Woods. Both subdivisions will be built at the same time. Walnut Ridge has 42 acres and 84 houses. Using their 2 houses per 1 acre model, Bridal Woods has 50 acres and should have 100 houses, but instead will have that 117. All but 2 of the Walnut Ridge houses have 70-foot wide lots. I firmly believe that Bridlewood should do the same, as 60-foot lot wides are way too close to each other, causing a claustrophobic feeling. 8th, in the current resolution, number 12 talks about the green space and the 4-inch caliper tree test. In the October 2nd meeting, the board said the number could be reduced to 3 inches. So in 12A, the southern and the western property lines will receive the same treatment as the green space easement, but they get to have the 3-inch caliper test, yet the land behind my house has a 4-inch caliper test. I believe this is incorrect, and I request that it be changed to reflect what was stated in the October 2nd meeting.
That time
9th,
is up.
I'm sorry?
Time is up. That was the thing.
Oh.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Do we have any emails or?
We did receive 2 emails from citizens that were both in opposition.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and open it up to council. Councilman Literal.
I honestly don't have a whole lot to ask about this particular project. Randy, he did a great, I don't have any questions for you. You did a great job on your presentation. You answered my questions that I had before I asked them, so. This 25-foot buffer, I'd have to really dive into, get a lot more information about what was actually approved originally. The resident mostly concerned with. I guess, can you give me some more information on that? That's really the only question that I even seen. You pointed it out at your presentation. It was something that was added.
Yeah, as Ms. Hurley stated, the original concept plan, when it was turned in, before staff had a chance to review it and have a review meeting with the applicant, there was a 25-foot area labeled as conservation easement. This was at the rezoning phase. And because it's not really appropriate to have a conservation easement between two neighborhoods, because conservation easements can be, I mean, by definition, you can't do anything with them. It has to stay as it is, whether it be dead trees, whether that be poison ivy, rat's nest, skunk's nest, anything else. I mean, that's the intent of a conservation easement, to stay as it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not really appropriate to put those between two single-family residential neighborhoods if the neighbors can't cut down and make their house more people-friendly with the unwanted vegetation that is not really compatible with human, living. Nobody wants to live right next to rats and poison ivy. And so I had them change we talked about it through the rezoning phase, and actually in the ordinance, we had it renamed to a green space easement. And the intent of the green space easement is so that the larger trees are saved. In the definition of the zoning code, it says any tree 4 inches or larger should be saved and cannot be cut down. You could still put sheds and fences in that as long as you don't have to cut down a 4-inch tree or larger to do that. That's in the definition of the zoning code. We actually do define conservation easement in the zoning code, but it just needs to be remained untouched. Typically, we don't have any kind of buffer between two single-family residential neighborhoods.
Right.
They're
Was this area ever used as a conservation area? Was it ever upheld as that at any time?
I believe it was just one of the paths of the horse farm. It's been a large horse farm for a long time.
Right.
So
it was
I think
never,
they just,
so the property owner could do what they wanted with it.
right.
Right, okay.
And that's the difference between along the northern property line and the south and the eastern or the western property line is that's not in perpetuity being labeled as a green space easement. That's just when the developer's out there grading, they're there to save any tree that's 4 inches or larger, or 3 inches or larger if they can, if it doesn't impede on their ability to properly grade the site.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the long-term maintenance of that green space easement, we have a condition that prior to us releasing the subdivision, we'll need to review and approve the covenants and restrictions that the homeowners association puts together, or they will have in place before they start selling lots. And one of the things in there will be that the homeowners association is to ensure that 25-foot green space easement remains in perpetuity. Now, as with anything, I mean, and what happened down in southern Beavercreek, where we had city council actually remove the green space or the conservation easement, is because it just became impractical. And if 10 years from now, the HOA can't remove it, it would be a council decision to be able to remove it if that were the case.
Okay.
Really, any ordinance can be changed by council if appropriate at the time. So it would be something that the HOA would need to enforce as it went through, and
Okay.
the penalties or whatever would be really, and that's kind of the nth detail, but that would be something up to the HOA to make sure that they do what they need to make sure it stays in place.
Okay, all right, thanks. Thank you very much. That's really all I had for you. I do have one question for Mr. Ober. Thank you for your presentation. When you were explaining the size of the homes that you were looking to build, and you were making comparisons to, I guess, Cornerstone and the actual size of the properties, you had stated that most of these homes you were looking for one level, but then I kind of got a little bit confused with what you were trying to explain in the fact that you felt that there was going to be more larger homes in this development than originally, which you had originally stated, or?
Let me explain, and I probably should have spent some time on that. So a couple of things that I wanted to point out is we're adjacent to the most populated area that we're adjacent to is R1A zoning. And R1A zoning does allow a 1,200 square foot plan to be built in an R1A zoning. So the two communities that I referred to, one was Cornerstone in Centerville, and we offer product in there that's from 1,263 square foot, which gets us to that $299,000 price today. And the product in there goes up to 773 square foot, which is north of $400,000 as a base price. From those basic plans, people can add Florida rooms, they can add three-car garages, they can add, if the lot will allow it, and they can offer covered patios and things of that nature. This community will be more similar to Reeder Grove in Washington Township. In there, we offer from 1,453 square foot to 2,178 square foot. What I was saying in the Centerville community is we were successful with the marketing strategy and offering the 1,263 square foot plan because the traffic increased. We sold more houses, but they bought the bigger plan. So, in fact, I thought I had but the price ranges are fairly similar. In the Washington Township community, the average sale prices in there are slightly over $500,000. In the the Centerville community, they're in the early $420,000 price point. But my point was is we were able to attract more people to the community to look at the products because we could offer from $299,900. That's why the 1,200 square foot floor plan was important to us. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I was looking at condition 20 on the application, or I guess the recommendation, stating the 1,600 square foot minimum. And that's something that you're willing to hold true to, the 1,600 minimum.
That's what I'm asking for the variance on.
The variance to 60, but we're not looking at anything 1,200 square feet, nothing like that, then?
Well, we do have a 1,263 square foot, two-bedroom plan that we offer in Centerville that we would like to offer here, too.
Right.
The 2,500 square foot on the two-story is a little tough, particularly in an empty nester market, because we don't, that really basically means a first-floor master bedroom plan. They're pretty costly per square foot to build, and but we haven't sold any in the neighborhood in Washington Township. It just happens to be in the product line.
Right. Okay. All right, that's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Dewar?
Thank you, Mayor. I have three sets of questions. Mr. Briquette, first, maybe all three are to you, all three sets. Addressing Ms. Hurley's concern, can we talk about how the HOA is created, its setup, its structure, how it goes from this point to being an operation that moves by itself?
Yeah, typically what will happen, prior to, as you know, there's the next phase of the subdivision. And in order to actually create lots and sell the lots, they would have to get that subdivision approved by Planning Commission and then recorded at the county. In order for them to record at the county, the Planning Commission chair has to sign off on it, the Greene County Commissioners have to sign off on it, the county sanitary engineer has to sign off on it, and then ultimately it would come back to me, and then I would sign for the city, and once I sign it, can take it to get recorded. Before I would sign it, we would review any of their covenants and restrictions and make those go into place before, and be recorded with the county before I sign it. So they're on the books, and at first, the developer is the sole owner, and as they sell more and more lots, and eventually, usually it's like a 50%, maybe higher or lower, depending on the developer. Once a certain amount of lots are owned privately by individuals, then they would turn the control and operations over to the homeowners themselves, and they would create a board and whatnot. And so there's some developers that will hold on to it even beyond that if they're, particularly if they have something next door and they want to make sure that they can have more control of the development as they're trying to sell the next project over. But really, it's about the details when the document actually comes forward. I mean, there's all kinds of examples of how that can be done.
Thank you. So related to that, what prevents the HOA from turning over its governance to an outside party? We see that in HOAs across Beavercreek, where it's run by a company out of state that really isn't here day to day, and then wouldn't really address the 25-foot easement. Is there a mechanism of putting in a condition that the HOA must be run by residents living in the location?
I mean, I've never got that far down into the details on those. I mean, that's certainly something that could be entertained, but typically you would want a professional property management company to come, because the the president and chair or the treasurer and all that, you don't really want them hiring the landscaping company, especially they wouldn't be able to get it at a cost compared to if a management company did 5 or 10 of them in the area, or snow plow or things like that. So you don't want to hamstring the future owners and box them in and limit their flexibility on what they can and can't do. I mean, ultimately, it's up to city council, whichever way you go, but I'm more on the side of flexibility for the homeowners themselves, and if they want to use the third party that's better at it and can get them better prices.
Mr. Ober, please. Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Burkett. Appreciate it.
If I might, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought I could add some more knowledge to that subject. So way back in I'm thinking it might have started in the 1970s, that Ohio Revised Code requires that all development detain or retain water to their downstream property owners, so that it doesn't have any more effect than it did pre-development. So that caused the need to create these homeowner associations. Well, we expanded on that, or have expanded on that, particularly with this kind of development, because we make it a little more elaborate. We control the fact that design guidelines are put in place. We have a declaration that's put into place that has covenants and restrictions. There are bylaws. There's 3 trustees appointed to each homeowners association, and our company basically manages that, myself included, as a trustee, until all of the lots in the development are sold. Then we turn, that's how we do it. That's not how every developer does it. Then we've been managing these since the 1970s. So once they're fully built out, we have an organizational meeting. We help the residents elect their own 3 trustees. We turn over the books to them, and then they govern themselves. But by then, pretty much we assure ourselves and the neighbors that that development will be built out as it was envisioned. That, because since we control those guidelines, even if somebody wanted to add covered patio after the fact. They still have to bring architectural plans, landscaping plans and whatnot to us, because we approve it even before it comes to the city for a building permit. And that establishes some consistency in how things are governed throughout the entire development. And we also, by the way, we provide, in this kind of a community, we'll be providing landscape maintenance, grass cutting, mulching, snow removal on the individual driveways. And these are going to be public streets, so we wouldn't need to worry about the streets, but on the private driveways, and that we'll be doing.
So the HOA is covering
Yes,
snow
sir.
removal? Okay, good to know. Yeah, I think my concern still is if it can simply be, as soon as it is turned over to the 3 trustees, then would be turned over again to an outside management firm. And I get the efficiency argument, but I've seen it where it goes out of state and it's effectively, it can be ignored. And that's where I think Ms. Hurley's concern is, what happens to that 25-foot buffer, and what assurances can you give her and her neighbors?
I think the landscape buffer, very much like a stormwater easement or a sanitary sewer easement, it has to be maintained as its intended purpose. So I know while we are managing that association, there would never be allowed any kind of a structure or an improvement that, other than a tree or something to that effect, on that landscaping easement. And by the way, I would like to mention too, most of the homeowners associations that we create, because part of our business is a property management company, most of these associations, maybe except for the very small ones, continue to hire us even after we turn it over, and we work then for the trustees of that association, if that makes sense.
It's helpful, thank you. Mr. Burkett, I guess I still don't like the width of the road size, but it's within the zoning code. 27 feet strikes me as still very narrow.
It gets a little larger as you get past that first, between the first intersection. Let me pull up a better map here. Unfortunately, the questions require a lot of flipping to get to the right answer.
That's quite all right.
If you notice that first cul-de-sac there to the east, and when you get just to the east of that, it does widen up. The right-of-way widens up to 60 feet so that you can have more pavement, because that would be the area that most traffic travels.
What's the type of curb that's going to be used here?
It'll be the 90-degree.
90-degree, okay.
Chair back. It's not going to be the roll curve that you see in some of the select neighborhoods in the city.
Just concern over school bus movement, parking on the streets. It's hard, once these things are in place, it's hard to manage, and it can cause issues. In my neighborhood, school buses get stuck, and they then have to call out. There's a roving group with the school that comes out and helps school buses to back up or to move. Often police officers are called, and I'd like to avoid some of that if we could, but it's within zoning code.
Yeah, it matches
I'd
the neighborhoods to the north.
I'd simply push it, wider. Third set of questions, it may just be a single question. In what order, given that there are 5 stages, in what order will the retention ponds be built? Is that all together? Is it in stages?
They will typically be built all at the same time. I mean, because they'll need to get all the underground pipes and culverts and everything in. And no matter what stage they're on, they're obligated by our stormwater management ordinance that they cannot create more runoff, or runoff cannot be faster or more voluminous it can't be faster than it is now.
So it's not a 2-stage, because it almost looks like it could be 2-stage, but it's all going to be together.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on where because of the topography of the ground, really the front lots are going to drain into those front ponds, and then the next phase is going to drain into the middle pond, and the others will drain into that third pond. They'll want to, they usually try to get them all built at the same time so that they've got the equipment out there, they can get it all done at the same time. But at no point can they have it to where water's running off the property, to the neighbor's property in more volume than it is now, or faster.
Thank you. I think that's it for now, Mayor. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilwoman Garcia.
Yeah, thank you. Randy, I think I can let you sit down for a second.
All right, thank you.
That's okay. I'm sure someone else will grill you here in a minute. I do have another question for the developer. I just want to, first of all, thank you for your interest in Beavercreek and our area. We appreciate that this is an area of interest to you. One of the things that I've noticed on council is when we're putting in these areas and we're putting in designated green space, the developer will plant trees or plant bushes or plant something to make that buffer. Is that something your company is willing or able to do in this instance, to start putting in? I know the concern, I think, is that there's really not much of a green space now, more like an old trotted horse path, I think you said, and then some shrubs.
Sure.
Would putting in trees or bushes or some type of greenery as you're developing in phases be something you can do in those areas?
Most definitely going to do that anyway. Typically, we don't come up with a detailed landscape plan at this point.
Sure.
Or stage of the process, but yeah, we'll be doing an overall concept landscaping plan. We'll share that with staff, and then each section will have its own individual landscape plan, just like it does utility plans.
I appreciate knowing that. I think the residents in the neighboring communities would appreciate that, and I think just the homeowners getting the new lots would appreciate having some of that too. So I look forward to seeing that, and thank you for your willingness to do that.
Typically, that isn't done till we're pretty far along with our engineering, because, we too, will likely do mounding in some cases, but until we know what the grading plans are like and whatnot, sometimes it's not possible to put a mound in certain locations, but we always take a look at that where we can.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Most of my questions have already been addressed, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Carn.
I don't have any comments at this time, and my issues have been addressed in the conditions, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Schwartz.
I do have a few questions. Mr. Burkett? Expect anything less.
It's okay.
I have a question about the traffic study that was conducted. Understand that was done with the township, the county. Should the township's development not come to fruition, what would kind of happen with the requirement for the right-in, right-out lane? Do we have any control over that, or is it not within our purview?
Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it'll be a requirement solely for the development on our side as well. So
Okay.
they'll still need to do it.
Okay,
There's
so it's
no-
required for both developments,
Yeah.
not just the township side?
And
Okay.
each by themselves or together.
Right.
They're independent and separate.
Okay, and then the next question I have, that one's already been answered. As this was presented to us during this rezoning phase, we looked at the lot sizes. The lot sizes have not changed, correct? Those have remained the same?
Right, yeah, the 60-foot was established at the rezoning.
Okay. And so should we reduce the home sizes, the lot sizes will continue to remain the same size?
Correct.
That's all the questions I have, Brady. Thank you. Mr. Ober, I do have a question for you, sir. You kind of talked about the different floor plans that you had available. You mentioned the 1263 in Centerville. Does that include garages and Florida rooms, or
That's
just
strictly
your-
living area.
Your base plan, the same
Yes.
way that we consider it? Okay. Personally, I don't have any issue in reducing the home sizes. I don't know what any of the fellow council members have, but I will voice that I don't have any issue reducing them. The lot sizes remain the same, and it provides for more green space, perhaps. So I don't have any issue with that. And with that, I don't have any other questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ober.
Vice Mayor Bales.
Mr. Ober, I echo Councilwoman Garcia's thanks for choosing Beavercreek to develop.
Thank
You know, we beat this project to death even at the rezoning phase, and we did talk a lot about that green space easement, whatever we're calling it at that point in time. I guess I did have some questions about the lot sizes that you're requesting, or, excuse me, the home sizes that you're requesting. Do you have any analytics that back up your request? I mean, you've said we've offered them at 1,200 square feet, and it brought tons of people in, but we haven't sold any. So I guess, what analytics do you have that would really prove that it's the marketing strategy that's bringing people in?
It's not unusual for a community to offer kind of a loss leader price point. My point is that we really don't find that the market in general buys the cheapest product that's on the market. We find that there's an average, and that's kind of why I stressed the price points and the fact that even after we release those or put those products on the market about a year ago, I mean, we still haven't sold the 1,263 square foot plant or whatever that was. But it's the price point helps us to get people to look at the site, because people, when they get on the internet and they look at possible houses that they might buy, whether it's new or used, they typically look at it by price bucket. So they'll look at it, say, from 250 to 3 or 350 to 4 or so. If we can get something that falls into that price bucket, it might mean that they'll come in and check out our product. And a lot of these buyers are cash, so they can afford the bigger product anyway, and that's what most of them are buying. But we still, that price point, or the 1,600 square foot really dictates a price point, and it's a little bit higher price point. That's about a $400,000 house today. So that's why we were trying to be a little bit more affordable.
Yeah, I totally get that, but I'm also pretty big on continuity between neighborhoods, and I don't know how many 1,200 square foot houses there are in the adjacent neighborhood, albeit allowed by zoning.
Right.
And just that concerns me a little bit. And although I believe that even if you offered them, you may not sell too many of them, if any. But I hate to put it in our conditions as allowable, just as a marketing ploy.
Can I maybe offer a compromise? Would you consider a 1,400 square foot minimum? That's between the 12 and the 16 that we're talking about. It mean I couldn't offer the 1,200 square foot plan.
I get it. I understand what you're asking. Tell me, what was the township's reaction when you asked them to reduce their house sizes?
As I recall, that was not an issue over there.
So 1,200 is their minimum house size over there?
I'm saying I don't recall that it came up during that zoning.
So you're not at you're not at this stage yet?
Well, we are just getting into that stage.
I mean, it was tabled last time?
Yeah, we got tabled at the October meeting, so that if it comes up, it'll probably come up at the November meeting.
Are you planning to bring it up with the township?
Well, the square footage is an issue because it was a part of the staff recommendation and Planning Commission's recommendation coming to you. So I don't know that it's going to be an issue, because I don't know if that condition will even exist at the township level.
I see.
Typically, in a lot of these zoning cases, square footage, I mean, this is honestly the first time square footage has become really a topic for as long as I can remember.
Big.
I would like to be on the same playing field as the housing development right across the street.
That's a different product, though. That's difference between this site and the township site is the township site has a lot of topography. We really couldn't offer this kind of a product on that realistically just because of the topography. There's I don't recall the amount of grade that falls across that site, but it's pretty significant. And This product is a little more conducive to the site because it's not flat, but it's not got nearly the topography.
Okay, all right. I think that's all I had for you. Thank you. Mr. Burkett, when you talked about maintaining the 3-inch caliper tree in the grading on the west and south, did you show the Planning Commission the highlighted map that you showed us that said basically all the lots but 2 are going to have
That
to
map
be?
didn't exist at the time. It was kind of one of those conditions that they wanted to add in there. It wasn't something that I had prepared for. But knowing, we did point out, and I tried to show them the grading plan without the highlights in it and show, hey, you see everywhere there's topography marked out. Those you're not going to be able to save that area. And so whether they grasp the entire, almost the entire south end is, not able to be saved. I'm not sure if they grasp that completely. It came about because there was a neighbor that lived on the farm and wanted to try to get as much screening as possible. We typically don't screen the farm. Usually it's the other way around where housing will screen themselves from the farm, but, Planning Commission wanted to try to offer something, so they said, just try to save all the trees that are 3 inches or larger along that property line.
And in your report, you mentioned about the 3-inch trees can be taken down in order to have the site being graded appropriately.
Right.
So is that our engineer that determines that, or?
Yeah, I mean, they'll review the final. Usually when plans come to you guys, it's around 60% engineered. It's not completely engineered. And prior to release of the record plan, to record the lots, the applicant will have to come up with a 100% engineer plan that shows everything, the construction drawings and everything down to curb sizes and all the topography and everything. And so that final engineering plan would be approved by the engineer. What you guys see is, like I said, the 60%, we're almost positive this is going to work. It's just not, the amount of detail that goes between 60 and 100 is not appropriate to bring to, you wouldn't be able to see much of a difference from a policy standpoint.
I did have a question on condition 26, which was the prohibition of construction traffic. I just so happen to have pretty firsthand knowledge about construction traffic on new developments. Can you tell me how you're going to really realistically accomplish that? Because signage does not work. Have you considered putting barricades across the road, or how are you going to realistically do it?
Well, before the development opens and people start moving in, yeah, we can make sure that there's a physical barrier to stop it. But once people actually start moving into the neighborhoods, you have to provide a secondary access for the fire department, just from a public safety standpoint. We do establish a $500 street sweeping bond, so if they do track mud somewhere and don't clean it up, then the city can go out and clean it up and then withdraw from that bond. So we do have that, and we do that with all developments. And if it became a problem, and the planning department finds out about it, we can have discussions with the developer that this has to stop. I had several discussions with the developers at Cedarbrook, down there on Shakertown, where they weren't supposed to be going through the existing neighborhood, and they didn't give that message to the subcontractors, and the subcontractors kept coming through, and I finally had to, put down a pretty strenuous language and threaten them and say, or I have to shut the site down if you don't stop doing that. And I think that stopped it, or at least I didn't get a complaint after that. So that's certainly something I can do with developments.
You may consider having that conversation with the Fisher development.
Noted.
So, okay, with regards to condition 20, and Mr. Ober's willingness to compromise? I mean, I think as far as council goes, I'm okay with 1,400 square feet, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, to give you some statistics behind it, if you look at this chart here, this shows the quarter, half mile, and 2 mile. The square footage that you see in the chart doesn't take into account the removal of the garage. So if you're looking at the 2 mile mark, and I wrote it down and now can't find it, but if you subtract 500 from those, or 528 from those square footages, you get closer down to the 1,200 when it comes to citywide, and closer to 1,400 when you get into the 2 mile range and the quarter mile. For whatever reason, well, I guess for this one, I was looking more at the 2-story, not the 1-story, but the 1-stories still average around 17, 16, 1,500 feet as you get within the development. It's just that half mile is what we took the number off of, or the 1 mile is what we took the number off, just because that was in the general vicinity. But if you look at 2 mile out, you're closer to 1,400, and citywide, you're closer to 1,250.
Well, just for council's benefit, if we wanted to modify that condition, I would be okay with 1,400. The other thing, going back to Councilwoman Garcia's comments, could you please comment on adding maybe a condition 31 about additional landscaping within the buffer, and within the easement, green space easement?
If that's something council wants to require, it becomes challenging, but I mean, just because you're turning it over to a future homeowner, and if Mr. Ober puts in white pine and that person doesn't like white pine, they're just going to take them out, or it becomes a personal preference of that homeowner if you're putting in new trees into a green space easement. Now,
You mean that I thought once we turn it over, are they allowed to take out those trees?
not if it's less than 4 inches, or 4 inches or bigger, sorry. They still own the land, but they have to leave the larger trees. A conservation easement means they couldn't do anything, and we didn't want to see that. But the green space means they can put in fence, they can put in a shed, but they can in areas where it requires the removal of those larger
Could we add a
trees.
condition that would create some landscaping plan in that easement that they can't remove without prior approval?
Yeah, I mean, we can do whatever, anything that planning or city council wants, or we can add a condition that prior to the construction of the house, the applicant or the developer needs to plant 2 or 3 additional trees back in that green space easement. Picked out by the homeowner so that they get a tree that they're not allergic to or something, and they're going to tear down.
Well,
Right, maybe within reason, so we don't have the homeowner picking, trees that are too expensive for the contractor then to have to put in?
well, wouldn't it be easier just to have Mr. Ober prepare a plan for review that can...
Where they give examples of trees that could be used back there.
Well, I would think he would just want to he would want to have a plan that could just be followed, as opposed to asking every individual homeowner what they want to see.
I personally have a tree in the front of my yard that I
Oh, no.
hate, and I'm not going to dig it up. So I don't know how many residents are going to be digging up trees when they first buy their house.
Mr. Ober, would you like to comment on this idea?
Well, it would be difficult to make a specific requirement this far in advance, but also, you should know that normally when we're dealing with residential against other residential, that it's rare to have some kind of a landscape requirement implemented. I see it against commercial and industrial and other types of uses, but a lot of what we have now is honeysuckle. This was a horse farm, and riding trails, and but we always provide a landscape package with every house that we build that contains 2 or 3 trees, a certain amount of shrubs and whatnot, depending on whether it's a corner lot or And we don't typically, well, we could put, I don't know, if we provided 2 trees for a typical 60-foot lot, would you want to require one of them be in the back?
It's a big can of worms.
I don't.
All right, we'll keep talking. So the problem with that 25-foot area is that half of it is horse path, and half of it is probably honeysuckle. I'm finished asking questions.
Thank you very much. I did have a couple of things. Most things have been answered, but has the fire department looked at this plan at all, as far as getting fire trucks and things like that?
Yeah, they've reviewed it.
They've approved it?
Yeah, they've reviewed the layout and all that. I mean, they've got, down the road, they'll have, not issues, but comments on the water and the
Right.
looping and stuff like
As
that.
it moves forward, yeah.
They've reviewed the preliminary, and they're okay with it.
And also, are any of these homes going to have basements? None will have basements, okay. That's pretty much covers everything I wanted to say. We wanted to change that 16 to 1,400. I need an amendment, an adjustment to that.
I have one question, Mayor. I meant to ask this earlier, and I apologize I didn't. I think it's more of a question for legal, but in terms of the HOA and the restrictions and the covenants, so what would happen should there be some type of issue with this easement? Could the HOA then be sued?
Yes. So one of the homeowners could sue the HOA for violating the agreement, the easement.
Thank you. Sorry. Follow-up to that, could any citizen sue the HOA? So, for example, any of those property owners that are abutting?
So the easement is owned by who, Randy?
It would be an easement on the plat. We can structure it so it's owned by it's a city easement, but maintained by the HOA.
So
Or,
definitely the people in the HOA could sue the HOA. The answer to whether someone outside the HOA could sue the HOA is I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
No, that's okay. I was just on the topic of changing the conditions or editing or adding, I would be willing to reduce, was it condition 20 to 1,400 in compromise of adding some type of condition for putting in trees in that buffer, in that 25-foot easement. And I don't know how we want to negotiate a language in that, but I think that would be a fair compromise. Because the lot size will not change. The footprint would change, but the lot size would not.
we can just add the condition or amend the condition about landscaping, say the final plan shall show a row of trees planted between lot, whatever lot that is, in the 25-foot green species, and we can just name out the lots that those are, where they'd be, and
I did want to ask, the way I'm looking at this, I'm only seeing 9 lots that would even touch the neighboring.
right,
lot.
it's not,
Only like 9 lots. And of the 9, looks to me like 6 of them are the larger size lots that are all in the cul-de-sac.
right.
So I don't understand the need of added trees to a property.
I mean, I think I would argue that if there's only 9, I don't see why we wouldn't. If that seems to be a big concern for residents, and that is an area where we want to make sure we're protecting that 25-foot easement. If it's only 9 lots, and we're not going to look at the green space where the retention ponds are, why not?
I don't know what
I wasn't, sorry,
I guess
that
on
was
that
slightly
one.
rhetorical, but
Yeah.
also
a condition
not
can be
rhetorical for
added.
council.
Condition can be added that, trees can be added to A couple trees can be added to each, and then name the lots, whatever those lot numbers are. That's possible, yeah. I think that's what they're asking, to supplement the tree, the area of the tree, because it's large.
Do we even know how many trees are actually out there on each of those lots?
I don't have a tree survey, if
Yeah,
that's,
I didn't.
We have a motion to make that adjustment, that amendment? I think,
I think it would be both, if council agrees. It would be the change of condition 20 to amend the
Right.
16-foot to the, or 1,600-foot to the 1,400-foot, correct? And then it would be an additional condition number 31 about putting in trees for the 9 properties abutting the 25-foot easement.
You should make it, if those are going to be made, I do them as separate motions to amend.
Okay. And then an overall motion to approve as amended. But I don't know if council had any further comments on that.
are there any further comments?
I don't know if you want to give a specific number, that way,
I think it's hard to give a specific number without
Right.
knowing how many trees are already there on each specific planned lot.
And I don't think we're ever going to hit anything that's going to totally block it off. I don't think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Maybe just add some things there that make it look a little bit more pleasing.
And if there's already a landscape plan that the developer does with the new homeowners, then I'm sure they can come to an agreement as to what the new homeowner would want as far as a buffer as well, right? You would think somebody moving in there would want a similar amount of
Want their own
protection as
screening as well.
yeah, somebody, similar amount of protection as the people who already live there.
Yeah, I guess my concern is I don't know how the condition is going to be worded in order to implement it in the manner that we are proposing. That's my concern.
Well, let's start sketching it out.
Randy mentioned a row of trees.
Yeah.
My question is, what are we trying to accomplish here with the trees? What is the goal here? What are we doing?
My goal would be just to,
Screening.
the screening and protecting somehow that
Screening
easement's got to make
from-
sense.
From a
The
neighbor's
Yeah,
house?
between the
From a
two.
neighbor's house?
Yeah,
I think we heard a lot of concern at the rezoning.
Right.
From the existing neighborhood that was
Right.
concerned with the.
Neighbors?
Neighbors, especially considering the
Mike.
different.
Especially considering the difference in lot sizes from one to the other.
Now, would it have to be trees? Could it be like arborvitae or something like that? Just if you're looking for separation, I mean,
it can be whatever council.
that would be a lot less
prefers.
expensive.
I mean,
on
Arborvitaes do
everybody,
grow faster and are evergreen.
If that's
What
what
you
we're
improve?
trying to accomplish.
Arborvitae, especially if you get the giant arborvitae that are 6 feet when they planted, and then they end up growing pretty wide, but
Okay,
I'm trying to tamper expectations of the neighbor at the same
Right.
time, and,
Well, I want it to be flexible enough that it works for the developer and the homeowners.
right.
So what if we do, condition 31, implement a row of landscape for screening purposes in the 25-foot easement in the 9 lots abutting neighboring community?
Did you get that? I think we got it on camera. so.
We could play me back. Council? I don't know.
Is that a motion?
Well, I want to know if would that language work before I make a motion, or?
Mr. Ober, could I,
Does a developer
Probably say the
understand
north side.
Yeah, I would
only.
like to know
Well, we're
what
talking
Mr.
about the
Ober's-
north
Well,
side.
just the easement, in the 25-foot
The
easement.
easement on the north
Yeah.
side.
I guess I wanted to remind council, though, that the 9 lots that we're talking about that abut the A1 to the north are required to be those large lots anyway.
Mhm.
So they're already 20,000 square foot lots. So, and it's, in some of those cases, there are trees, particularly to the west of the most western through street, the north-south through street. And how do we treat those lots? I mean, would you have me add trees when there's already an existing tree line there? that we intend to save if we can. The grading issues are mostly to the south.
All right, so this is getting lengthier as we go.
The landscape plan basically will be brought forth later, right?
Yes.
As far as what you're going to do there, I think that might be a good time to really
Right.
address that.
Right.
Yeah, I think I guess I would ask you
That's okay.
to reconsider, like an arborvitae tree line, along that northern property line where we have 20,000 square foot lots abutting other 20,000 square foot lots seems, that's a lot. And it's expensive.
Yeah, sure. How's that cost? Who eats that?
Well, I guess I would have to try to add it to the house price, so,
Ditto.
Because the horse trail is uneven across that area. So it's not a consistent footage. It is 16 feet in places, but it's not everywhere along there. So I think that's the concern of Mr. Oberer. What do you do in there where it's not the 16 feet or it gets a lot shorter?
I think in some cases, particularly to the northwest, west of that through street, it's almost going to be not necessary because there's a pretty good growth of trees west of that through street.
So,
And
Randy,
we're going to try to save those trees in the backyard because, frankly, as a developer, those are premium lots. I live on a wooded lot. I don't know why anybody would want one, but they are the most popular lots, and we can make them even more valuable to the home buying public if we preserve trees. So that's really going to be our goal anyway.
so will you be replacing the trees that you do remove? In the areas where you do have to remove, you said you want to preserve the trees in those areas where you can, in the areas where
We're
you
going to try
can't.
because these are slab houses, I'm going to have to move a lot of dirt.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to build compacted pads on each one of those lots. And so, obviously I can't, and most of that will be done as a mass grading project and not as a strategic surgical grading plan. So they'll go up and down the street on both sides and compact pads into place so that the houses can be built on them. But that also works the same way with trying to save those trees, particularly along those lot lines. Well, as much of that as we can save along the back of those lots, we will save, because it makes those lots more valuable. And I would also tell you, though, that those that we can't, I will promise you that we'll come up with a screening plan. It'll be some staggered pine trees or something.
Randy, do you have to approve the landscape plan once it's developed? Okay, well, I think you've heard enough from council of what we would like to see in that we don't need a condition if that's something that you're going to approve.
That's kind of where I was headed.
Yeah, I think you kind of have some marching hopes. Thank you.
Now, do we have a motion to amend condition 20?
I'll move to amend condition 20 to allow a minimum of 1,400 square foot for a single-story home.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend issue 20 on this from 1,600 to 1,400 without a garage. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And now we need a motion to approve the
Move
amendment.
to approve, let's see, language here.
Yeah, there's
A paragraph.
I move for the purpose of taking administrative action, approval of specific site plan for PUD 23-2, specific site plan number 1, on the basis that City Council finds the facts submitted with the application and accompanying materials satisfy the standards and criteria set forth in Section 158.066 approval procedures for specific site plan of the Beavercreek zoning code. I further move that this motion with all of the following conditions, there are 30, be fully recorded in the minutes of this council meeting as
Second.
amended.
There you go. I have a motion and a
Second.
second. I'm sorry, you were right there. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Here we go. Well, I guess we need to,
We got a ton of these.
all right, next up, ordinances, resolutions, and PUDs. Ordinance 24-30.
Ordinance 24-30, an ordinance to establish a new special revenue fund in conformity with federal and state laws and generally accepted accounting principles.
Good evening.
Welcome.
So, City of Beavercreek is receiving $1 million grant from the state of Ohio for Springhouse Park. It is our recommendation that we create a new fund to receipt this money into and to make it easier to track and report on the money that we're spending for this grant. It is a best practice with a grant like this. So this is just the first reading, but staff recommends adopting the ordinance to create a new fund for Springhouse Park.
Any input?
Question?
Makes sense to follow best practice, in my view.
And this is an ordinance, so we will open it up to public for any public input at this point. Seeing none, we will close the public portion. Anything else from council?
Mayor, I motion to move ordinance 24-30 to a second reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, move ordinance 24-30 to a second reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 24-31.
Ordinance 24-31 to approve supplemental appropriations and certify revenues for fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2024, and to amend ordinances 24-28, 24-20, 24-11, 24-09, 24-06, and 23-36.
Yes, so this is, some of this is fund cleanup as we get toward the end of the year, and also some of this is for the new fund that we're going to create. So for Springhouse Park, we have to allocate revenue and budgets to that fund, so that is in here. We have a number of things that are fund cleanup as we reach the end of the year. Most of these involve volume. So some of these funds, we had more activity than we had originally budgeted. More activity on the revenue side meant more activity on the spending side. So for golf, for parks, for the Green Town Assessment, for the TIF, we are increasing the revenue and increasing the appropriation for those funds by roughly equal amounts in most of these cases. Then for the ARPA fund that is on here, we had money from 2023 that was encumbered in 2023, and then part of that encumbrance was canceled. We didn't need to spend as much as we thought on the project. Now we want to take that money and appropriate it to something else, and so we need the increased appropriation for the ARPA fund for that reason. I believe it was a stormwater project that came in under the budget. We have to spend the money by the end of the year, so we want to increase the ARPA appropriation for that reason. Are there any questions?
This is another ordinance, so there is public input for this. So if anyone is out there would like to come forward and speak to this issue, please come forward. Seeing none, public portion is closed. Any questions for?
I'd simply like to commend the parks and golf course for increased revenues. Nice work
ditto.
on behalf of both.
Yeah, and it's noted in the quarterly report as well.
Right.
It's been a good year there.
Yep, it's been a good year.
Just had one question about the ARPA fund.
Yeah,
Uh,
yes.
What project is the addition, or that money going to be going towards?
I believe part of it is going to go to the police parking lot, and then I believe the other part is going to a different stormwater project.
Utilize it as best we can. That's
Yeah,
good.
we have to encumber it.
I know
by
we
the
have
end
to,
of the
it's,
year.
we have to,
Yeah,
we
so
have
we
to
don't wanna
spend it,
lose
so.
it.
Anything else? We have a motion?
Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 24-31 in a single reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 24-31. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Dewar.
Yes.
Councilmember Schwartz.
Yes.
Councilmember Curran.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bales.
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia.
Yes.
Councilmember Literal.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes. We have a resolution 24-41.
Resolution 24-41, a resolution to declare the necessity and intent to acquire certain parcels or real estate and other property interests owned by Brenda A. Dernball, Robert J. Dernball, and Linda S. Elmore as successor co-trustees of the John W. Dernball and Brenda A. Dernball Joint Revocable Living Trust dated July 3rd, 2014, with interest by others for the North Fairfield Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
Get a new face.
Evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I have a few of these this evening for appropriations that will be moving forth with for a couple of different projects. The first one here is the North Fairfield Road project from Fairbrook Elementary to Shakertown Road. We had a couple other appropriations that we came to you over the last couple meetings. One of those we actually were able to get Mr. Hicks to sign, just for some background for that. Mr. Anderson has passed away, so we have to move forward with the appropriation for that one. For the Dernball property here, we have been working with them, mostly with Mr. Dernball. Recently, they hired an attorney to work for them to try to get this done. I have been working with their attorney. We've had a few back and forths on counteroffers, back and forth with the attorney. So far to date, we still have not been able to come up with agreeable amount for the counteroffer. I did submit another one to him last Monday, but have not heard back from him yet. So in order to get the process moving and to move forward with the project, we need to move forward with the appropriation as we continue to try to work with the Dernball family. So that is where we're at with this one. And then it has some temporary and some permanent take on that as well. So happy to answer any questions.
Any input?
How far apart are you in the negotiation, if you can
The
say?
first part we had, Councilmember Dewar, was we were having issues with the fence amount that was shown on, or what he was shown in his appraisal and what was actually being taken. We had figured out an amount that we had come to, but there were still issues with the land value that we were looking at. The latest counteroffer that I submitted back to him was, what was happening was we were making him pay to re-put everything back up. So this latest counteroffer is to get, it makes more sense for us to do it as part of the project. So he doesn't put it back up and be in the way and then get taken down again. So that's the latest thing where we're at with it now. So it's basically the land value that we're held up on.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I motion to approve Resolution 24-41.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-41. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 24-32.
Ordinance 24-32, excuse me, to appropriate certain real property interests owned by Brenda A. Dernball, Robert J. Dernball, and Linda S. Elmore as successor co-trustees of the John W. Dernball and Brenda A. Dernball Joint Revocable Living Trust dated July 3rd, 2014, with interest by others for the North Fairfield Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
All right, this is the accompanying ordinance for the property I just spoke about to move forward with that appropriation. So if there's any other questions, I'll answer those.
This is an ordinance, so it does require public input if there is any. And seeing none, we will close the public portion. Anything from
Your
council?
Honor, motion 2432 to second reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move ordinance 24-32 to a second reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution 24-45.
Resolution 24-45, a resolution to declare the necessity and intent to acquire certain parcels or real estate and other property interest owned by, I'm going to try this, Thiag Sanaraj, with interest by others for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
All right. Let's see if Mr. Bales has, that's a parcel, yeah, that's parcel 7 there. Okay. Once again, I got another, this is the second parcel for appropriation. This one is for Dayton Xenia Road. The rest of these this evening will be for Dayton Xenia Road. The good news I have with this one is today the Mr. Suganraj, hopefully I pronounced that right, verbally agreed to a counteroffer. So that is good news, but we have not gotten anything under contract yet. Due to the timing of this project, until I am able to get that contract, I need to move forward with appropriation in case he backs out on that. So that's the good news with this one. That came in about noon today that he verbally agreed. So questions with that one?
Input from council?
Motion to approve Resolution 2445.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-45. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, ordinance 24-34.
Ordinance 24-34, to appropriate certain real property interest owned by Thiag Suganraj
Yeah.
for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
All right, this is the accompanying ordinance from the resolution that was just passed for the property owned by Mr. Suganraj. So,
And again, this is an ordinance, so if there's any public input, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public portion. And council? anything?
Motion to move ordinance 24-34 to a second reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move ordinance 24-34 to a second reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 24-46.
Resolution 24-46, a resolution to declare the necessity and intent to acquire certain parcels or real estate and other property interests owned by Kelsey Baker with interest by others for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
okay, this property is on the south side of the roadway for Dayton Xenia, as you can see, owned by Miss Baker. We have permanent and temporary right-of-way that we'll be taking for this property. We've had some contact with Miss Baker, and I believe it's a relation that we've been talking to, also a man that's been representing her. So far, I have not been able to come to an agreement. They did offer a counteroffer of over almost $50,000 more than what was offered for FMVE, so it was rejected by the city. So at that point, the person we were dealing with on behalf of Ms. Baker said to move forward with appropriations, so that's where we're at today. So,
Input from council?
Move to approve the resolution 24-46, Your Honor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-46. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 24-35.
Ordinance 24-35, to appropriate certain real property interests owned by Kelsey Baker for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
this is the accompanying ordinance from the resolution that was just passed, so.
Again, this is an ordinance, so if any public input? Seeing none, we will close the public portion. Anything from council?
Move the ordinance 2435 to the second reading, Your Honor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve, or move ordinance 24-35 to a second reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 24-47.
Resolution 24-47, a resolution to declare the necessity and intent to acquire certain parcels or real estate and other property interests owned by Jacqueline Jacobs Mager and Clara Wanell Jacobs with interest by others for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
Okay, this is the next parcel for appropriation. It's parcel 13 up there on the north. We have a stormwater easement, temporary and permanent right-of-way that would be taken from this property. To date, we have been talking with the daughter of the estate, but the mother, which was one of the co-owners of the estate, has passed away. So it's currently in probate court, where we cannot move forward until that has been remedied with the mother that passed away. So the daughter has said that she would agree to it if we can get through probate, but since we're stuck in probate court right now, we need to move forward with appropriation for this property.
Council?
Move to approve Resolution 2447, Your Honor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-47. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 24-36.
Ordinance 24-36, to appropriate certain real property interests owned by Jacqueline Jacobs Mager and Clara Wanell Jacobs for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
Okay, once again, this is the accompanying ordinance for the resolution that was just passed for parcel 13 here. So any questions I answer?
It is an ordinance, so I ask for public input. Seeing none. Council?
Motion to move ordinance 2436 to a second reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move ordinance 24-36 to a second reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 24-48.
Resolution 24-48, a resolution to declare the necessity and intent to acquire certain parcels or real estate and other property interests owned by Michael and Teresa Jeljak with interest by others for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
Okay, this is the next parcel on Dayton Xenia Road that we have. It's on the south side of the roadway, just west of Geneva Road. As you can see on the map there, we have stormwater easement, temporary and permanent right-of-way. The holdup that we're having with Mr. Zeljak is that he wants us to improve his entire lot for the stormwater that comes out through there. If you look at the area highlighted in green, that is where the existing culvert under the road is being extended out to the south as part of the project. There will also be some new structures that will come into that culvert as well. What Mr. Zeljak is wanting us to do with the project, which we cannot because it's outside the scope of, and we have federal funds for this project, is he wants us to improve his private land where that comes out there kind of at the bottom of the green by that 15 SW. So that's the holdup right now we have with him. Jeff Mormon, the Public Works Director, has spoken with Mr. Zeljak too, and Jeff is going to try to get a hold of him again this week and send him a letter about the issues that we've discussed. So,
Council?
Mayor, I move to approve Resolution 24-48.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-48. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 24-37.
Ordinance 24-37, to appropriate certain real property interests owned by Michael and Teresa Zeljak for the Dayton Xenia Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
all right, this is the accompanying ordinance from the resolution that was just passed. So,
And again, it is an ordinance, so we have to open it up to the public. If anyone here would like to speak to that, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion.
Move the ordinance 2437 to a second reading, Your Honor.
I have a motion and a second to move ordinance 24-37 to a second reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 24-49.
Resolution 24-49, a resolution to declare the necessity and intent to acquire certain parcels or real estate and other property interest owned by Mark D. and Amanda A. Violet with interest by others for the Dayton Senior Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
All right, this is the last parcel here for the Dayton Senior Road project. Mr. and Mrs. Violet, I've met with them about 3 times, I think, now, and Mr. Mormon came out with me the last time we met with them. The holdup they have with the purchase is the driveway over towards the intersection on the west side. You can kind of see it where we had proposed a new driveway outside of the intersection that was due to safety concerns with an unsignalized phase being in this intersection with the driveway. After the last meeting, Mr. Mormon stated that we would go ahead and have our consultant or designer that's doing the project, who is a traffic engineer, look at this for safety concerns that we were having to get the Violets an official letter back for why we could or could not put that west driveway back in. So that did come back last Friday. We'll be forwarding that on to the Violets for their consideration to see if we can come to an agreement. So,
Counsel?
What did the letter say?
it did not recommend driveway in the intersection. It just recommended that the driveway be to the east driveway be moved to the east property line because of safety concerns. So, Mr. Bales, with the alignment that you had, if you look at it with the proposed improvements, the existing mast arm that's out there will be moved to the west into the middle of their existing driveway that's in the intersection now. So that was part of the issue, that you now have we have a new pole that's going to be in where their driveway is currently. They brought up concerns with that driveway that's shown on these plans. These are not final plans with that new alignment. That driveway is outside, but it's in the middle of the turning movement where they would not be expecting somebody to stop right there halfway through a turn to turn right into that west driveway. So that was a concern they brought up, and that we've discussed multiple times with them to do. So with that study that CMT did for us, the traffic engineers, it does have that, like I said, it has that east driveway moved to the east property line, and then also is providing for additional pavement in the temporary, between the temporary and the permanent right-of-way, to allow them for that internal security to make those turns to get back and back out, so they don't have to back out into Dayton Senior Road.
So the existing driveway now is more in line with the intersection, is it?
It is basically lined up with the northbound through onto Haynes Road. And the problem is you can't see, there's not a phase for it to move, so they're basically going in the intersection while other phases are going, and it's an unexpected movement in that intersection, so.
So are they moving their driveway more onto Haynes then?
No.
It's going to still...
So the driveway, Mr. Little, the west driveway will not be there.
Okay.
So that will be gone with the recommendation from CMT.
Yeah.
It'll just be that east driveway, but that east driveway location will be moved over to the property line. You kind of see it by where that stump is, over by where that 20T right there in the circle.
Yeah.
That's roughly where it's at.
Okay.
Where it'll be at, yeah.
The existing driveway a crescent, if I recall
It
correctly?
is a crescent, yes. Uh-huh.
And so the project will provide them adequate turnaround space?
Yes, it will, yeah.
Anything else?
Motion to approve Resolution 24-49, Your Honor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-49. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance 24-38.
Ordinance 24-38 to appropriate certain real property interests owned by Mark D. and Amanda A. Violet for the Dayton Senior Road widening project in the city of Beavercreek, Ohio.
Okay, this is the accompanying ordinance from the resolution that was just passed, so.
And it is an ordinance, so we have to ask for public input.
Right.
So if anybody wants to jump up here and talk, I don't see that, so I'll close the public portion. Counsel?
Move ordinance 24-38 to a second reading, Your Honor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move ordinance 24-38 to a second reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 24-50.
Resolution 24-50, a resolution to authorize the submittal of the Grange Hall Road at I-675 Interchange Project, US 35 at Factory Road Interchange Project, and the Springhouse Park Improvements Project for prioritization through the Dayton Regional Priority Development and Advocacy Committee, PDAC.
Yes, evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. We were recently informed that a new round of PDAC applications are going to be accepted until November the 25th. And reviewing the requirements of the grant, we're recommending 3 projects be submitted. Before I get into the particulars of each project, I should say this is a little bit different than our typical grant application. Typically, when I come before City Council for one of these, there's a pot of money that we're going after for a piece of that pot of money, and we have a local commitment, funding commitment. This is a little bit different, where there is no real big pot of money we're going after. This is more or less to inform our state and federal elected officials of the need for these projects and ask them for their assistance in finding money through their means to help fund these. With these applications, there is no local funding commitment for the city on any of these applications. And our hope is that if these come to become funded, that the federal and state monies would cover the cost of these, hopefully. So before any funds would be committed to these, we would have to come back before City Council and ask for your authorization down the road. So with that, the first application we're proposing is Grange Hall at I-675, which I think Council is familiar with. This is one that we successfully received federal funding for from Mr. Congressman Turner's office, I believe, 2 years ago. That money has been put to good use. We're currently close to completing the feasibility study. We have a recommended alternative that ODOT has reviewed and provided comments for. And we have the public involvement meeting on that preferred alternative actually coming up on Thursday, November the 14th at Wright State University is where that will be held. And we'll be posting more information on that on the city website as that becomes more finalized. The application is going to request the funding needed to complete the rest of the work, which in our estimation is $41 million. That would include design, right-of-way purchases, and construction. And that, of course, is inflated for, I believe, 2030 construction. So that's that project. The other project we're recommending is US 35 at Factory Road. And the application will consist of the money needed to purchase the land to build the project as well as the final design. And I should note past efforts for this project have included both the interchanges at Orchard and Factory. As for this application, would focus on Factory Road at US 35, the portion that's actually inside the city of Beavercreek. And lastly, the last application will be for what's needed to complete Phase 1 of the Springhouse Park improvements. I think you may have seen before that park staff had proposed a Phase 1, they were calling it. They originally submitted for state funding. It was, I believe, $4 million. Where they received $1 million of that recently. This application would be to complete the remainder of Phase 1, which includes a splash pad, parking facilities, a restroom, et cetera. So, and I have the Parks Director here tonight, too, with any questions on that particular application. So, any questions? I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Who chairs that committee?
It's the Dayton Development Coalition, I believe, is kind of running it. It depends on which application you apply. There's different tracks.
Oh, I see.
And different groups have responsibility, like transportation, MVRPC reviews those.
Okay.
There's a defense one, community enhancement, and different people have different areas of responsibility for ranking those.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Have a motion?
Motion to approve Resolution 24-50.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-50. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution 24-52.
Resolution 24-52, a resolution authorizing participation in an application submitted by the Greene County Engineer for the resurfacing of a portion of Dayton Xenia Road.
Yes, good evening again. The county engineer earlier this year submitted a funding application through MVRPC. The project entails the milling and resurfacing of the portion of Dayton Xenia Road from Forest Drive to Trayvine Road. There's a small portion within those limits that is within the city of Beavercreek. The portion highlighted in blue on the screen there is within the city. It's a fairly short segment of roadway. The anticipated local share, should the city participate, would be $18,643 would be what we would expect to pay as our local share. So we're asking that council approve the resolution so we can participate on this project if the county does receive funding.
Input?
Motion to approve Resolution 24-52, Your Honor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-52. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Decision item. I knew we weren't finished with you yet.
So you have all received the third quarter financial report. Broadly speaking, I think most things are on track with our projections. When we look at the major revenue items, they're either coming in right about as planned or a little bit over. In cases where they're far over, there are notes in the plan on why and what is happening there. Same thing on the expense side. I think through three quarters, most major funds are either on projection or slightly under. The only ones that are far under may be like capital items, where there's one big item that hasn't been purchased yet. And all that is noted in the report. So we ask that you accept the third quarter financial report, and happy to take any questions.
Everything's coming up roses, right, Sam?
I don't know if I want to go that far, but it's it's pretty well close to expected.
Any other input from council?
No.
Motion to accept the third quarter financial report.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept third quarter financial report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Council time, I think. Am I correct now?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Vice Mayor Bales.
Oh, goodness, okay. Thank you.
Wow.
I'd like to start off my council time just by paying a little tribute to Ed Phillips.
Right.
You know, he was a pillar of strength in our community and really a continuous cheerleader for Beavercreek and a wonderful businessman. And so I just really wanted to kind of just say my thanks to him, and my thoughts are with his family tonight, or this past week. Moving on, I'd like to congratulate the Beavercreek Historical Society for the completion of the restroom and catering kitchen at Wardinger Park. That barn is really quite a facility now, and certainly I'm sure the line to rent that facility will grow bigger now that we've got restrooms. The last thing I'll report on is that the mayor and I had the pleasure of attending the Ohio Municipal League Conference last week, and I thought I'd just highlight some of the activities that we heard. We heard a session called the State of Home Rule, which is clearly being eroded by our state legislators. The theme was to keep a close eye on them and keep in their ear about topics that are coming up where potentially our home rule ability is being eroded. So I would ask all of us to do that, and when the league calls on us to make specific calls to them, we should do that. I also attended a session on the Ohio municipal income tax dynamics as they related from the work from home phenomenon. Obviously, that doesn't affect us today, but it was very interesting because they had a speaker who was a PhD at Miami University who's doing a study on the entire phenomenon and has obtained data from 100 cities in Ohio and all of the employment data and everything else, and how that research is affecting some cities adversely, and some cities obviously are gaining because of it. Right. The interesting thing is that I wanted to bring up to you is that I talked to her afterwards and talked to her about Beavercreek, and she was very familiar with Beavercreek as the largest city in the state of Ohio without an income tax. And I specifically asked her if any of the data that she had could help us understand an impact of income tax on our community at a particular taxing rate. And she said, absolutely.
Ooh.
And so I offered to bring in staff and any council members who might be interested in a conference call with her just to talk about that as a future discussion point. So I'll set that up. We heard about roadway infrastructure partnerships with ODOT. This was really interesting considering the factory road discussions that we've had with the interchange, and we talked about how we could move that project up in the list as much as possible, and so I think we've got a pretty decent insight on that. We did hear a state legislative update. We heard about housing crisis, which doesn't affect us as much as other communities in the state. The big one, which was very well attended, was about marijuana in Ohio's communities. The big takeaway I had for that is that the Office of Budget and Management is collecting quarterly revenues for the what's it called? The Host Community Cannabis Fund, which is the percentage that goes back to those host communities. The first distribution will be in January of 2025, so we should be on the lookout for that distribution at that point in time, and then quarterly thereafter. So there's been some rumors at the state level that the legislature again might try and change how that formula is given to the locals. So if I hear of anything, or if you hear of anything, let me know. I've already spoken to Brian Lampton about that. So we need to stay on that because as we have a dispensary in the city, we are entitled to that 3.6%. 36% of the 10% tax. And then the last one I attended was about Ohio's opioid settlement, and I wanted to thank Councilwoman Schwartz for keeping us so up to date on that whole issue, because basically the speaker reiterated everything that we had already been briefed about from Councilwoman Schwartz. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Garcia.
Thank you. I just have 3 quick things. Congratulations again to K-9 Hans and Officer Major Sack. That is an incredibly difficult position. I think being a law enforcement officer today is incredibly demanding and incredibly challenging, and then to add in the training, the care, the thought that goes behind incorporating a canine officer with that is just added pressure and added stress, and Officer Majorczak is someone who volunteered for that. So this is big congratulations to him and his family, as well as Officer Hans, who well-deserved retirement. Thank you again to staff for all of your funding, grants, and applications for MVRPC. You guys are definitely putting them to good use, which is very beneficial to the city. Thank you for everything that you've done. I know this coming November 7th at the MVRPC meeting, we are going to vote on our portion to receive funding from the AARP Livable and Age-Friendly Community. So the first phase of that would just be to explore what residents want to see. So if that's approved, the first option is just money to figure out what we could do with it. And that's going to be in joint partnership with the township. So that's really exciting as well. And then thank you to Mr. Mormon. I know you're going to be attending some upcoming sessions to learn how to get even more funding opportunities from MVRPC. So thank you for continuing to just find ways to help our city on this, I'd say limited income, but really we have no income. So thank you very much to staff for everything that you do to continue to help the city. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Councilman Dewar.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to congratulate Seven Brew on their impending opening. I guess they've opened, soft opening, but they have their ribbon cutting tomorrow, and always neat to see a new business come in a tight space, and I think efficient use of the space, and nice to see a plan coming together. Had the opportunity to work on trash for the Haunted Classic, so that was a huge tournament. 500 teams came into Beavercreek, and I was on trash pickup duty, so I tried to keep things as clean as possible, so I enjoyed that. Like Vice Mayor Bales, I attended the Wardinger Park ribbon cutting and concur fully. What a wonderful upgrade, and I do think that there'll be significant demand there. Chief, I'd like to have a shout out to Officer Peffley. I have a fifth grader who comes home daily and raves about the DARE talks, and very thankful for that. Please pass along our thanks to Officer Peffley. Had the opportunity to attend Kirkmont Church's trunk or treat, and I think that was very nicely done. Great outreach in the community. Finally, I'd like to congratulate the Beavercreek cross-country team, Division I champs, as well as the Beavercreek High School men's soccer team, who won the Southwest Ohio District 5 and continue to move forward in their playoff season. Congratulations to all athletes this season and ongoing, because there's still a lot in play. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Kern.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd echo Vice Mayor Bales' comments concerning Mr. Phillips. Had the opportunity to attend the funeral, and what more can be said? An outstanding citizen who's contributed so much in this community over the years. Want to encourage people to get out to vote. That's coming up here next week, and we want to encourage our citizens to get to the polls if they haven't already and exercise that very important right. Veterans Day is coming up, November the 11th. Multiple activities going on. We want to focus on the 2 p.m. Beavercreek at the Veterans Facility up here on North Fairfield. And also I attended the Historical Society ribbon cutting, and think there are great things that they're going to be able to do with the addition of the restroom and the food facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Little.
I'm short and sweet. I thank staff for all their presentations. I'm never not very impressed with the amount of work you do and how organized all of you are. I did want to say something about Seven Brew. I don't know if you know, but their soft opening was insane. They were giving coffee away. They parked, the entire parking lot was full of cars, and people were lined up all over the place trying to get coffee from them.
I think they went to the schools as well.
Yeah, they showed that they can do volume. They can handle a line. They can handle people. I did get a little bit of coffee, and they're doing a good job. So that's really all I have to say.
Oh, thank you very much. A lot of the things have been said I was a part of as well. I won't reiterate those. I will say, though, that I got to help a young lady, Callista Hess, who we've had here before. She's with Bears for Children's. It's her nonprofit. But she decided, along with 2 or 3 of her friends, to raise funds and get donations for North Carolina. And I was able to help them find a place to store it. Thank you to the Hilton Garden Inn for providing a room for them to store all their products in. They filled a truck and then a trailer and went down there and actually made the news down in North Carolina. So it's people from our community doing good all over. So got to go to the Dayton Dragons baseball park to see what they're planning to build over the next couple of years. They're going to have an event center, an underground batting cages, and pitching mounds. So they have some stuff, because I guess Major League Baseball insists upon that. So, but that's going to open up more areas on the above that for seating, patio seating, things like that. So it looks really good to what they're going to be doing. I agree with Vice Mayor Bales. I think at the OML was a great meeting. I think we learned a lot. Actually came back with a funding opportunity that really won't cost us any money from ODOT, which is something that we probably wouldn't have heard about had it not been there. At least we've heard about it later. So we got that. And then yesterday I was invited to be a judge for the Lions Club trunk or treat at the Beavercreek High School. That was a lot of fun. I don't think the people that I didn't choose were real happy, but that's kind of the way it goes. So that's all I have for now.
Okay, to quickly, not to prolong this, trick or treat, Thursday night, 31st from 6 to 8 p.m., rain or shine. Right now it's looking like about 80% chance of rain from what I'm hearing. So we need the rain, but yes, be safe out there, please, and be safe. That's the highest of priority. Election Day has been mentioned. As far as we have on the ballot, of course, 2 charter amendments and consideration for a 0.49 mil continuous fixed parks levy. So if anybody's just now finding out, there's more information on that on our website. But go out and vote, and I know one of our centers, the senior center, is held as an election center, so most of the activities, except for transportation, will not be happening at the senior center, as the parking lot, if it's as usual, will be jammed up with vehicles and cars and people trying to vote. Veterans Day ceremony, as this was mentioned, on November 11th at 2 p.m. At the North Fairfield Road Veterans Ceremony Place, Veterans Memorial, if I can get it right. There is limited bleacher seating for those guests. Encouraged to bring your own lawn chair if you can. But also, just as a reminder, on Veterans Day, the city's offices will be closed for in honor of the holiday. And for non-emergencies, always please contact the police department at 426-1225, and of course 911 for emergencies. Mr. Mormon mentioned this, the open house for 675 in Grange Hall. To get some of the information back, this will be November 14th, 4 to 7 at Millett Hall. In Millett Hall at Wright State University. This is that partnership. They invite you to an open house to discuss a study on improving 675 and interchange at Grange Hall Road. And the project proposes new ramps and improvements of Grange Hall and the intersection with Colonel Glenn Highway. There's more information about this on our website as well. Coming up later this week, it will be November 1st, so it's not too early to mention this because our next meeting is not till November 12th. So Monday, November 18th and November 20th, which is a Wednesday, 5 to 7, basically 5 to 7. It kind of ends when we get done. But will be the budget work sessions. Public is invited to participate in our budget work sessions as they have throughout the years. Sessions will focus on detailed breakdown and review of the proposed 2025 financial plan and capital improvement plan as well. And that's all I have tonight.
Thank you very much. Now, time for citizen comments. If anyone would like to come forward and address council on any subject, please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none, I will close the public portion, and I think I have a motion.
Mayor, I move to enter into executive session pursuant to Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code for the purpose of consideration of the employment, promotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Garcia.
Yes.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor Bales.
Yes.
Councilmember Literal.
Yes.
Councilmember Curran.
Yes.
Councilmember Dewar.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes, and there will be no decision out of this, so we will be adjourning immediately after, so effectively the meeting is over.